Right. So, happy Monday. We are going to go over your homework. There is a virtual assignment. It's actually not religious, really, at all. But I wanted you to read two short articles and answer a couple of questions on them to help your own academic intelligence. They're about note taking. So, yeah, those are due by tomorrow midnight. And you also need to be studying for your vocab quiz, which is Wednesday. Now, I'm going to tell you pretty much exactly what's going to be on the vocab quiz, despite me telling you almost exactly what's on the vocab quiz. Students still struggle immensely with it. With the first one, there's something about the first two vocab quizzes that students really struggle with. I think they eventually adjust, they figure out the way that works for them, and then it's vocab quizzes are easy points in my class largely. But it's a little bit harder than others, so it takes some adjustment, but you'll get there. Either way, you're going to get 10 vocab terms, and I just give you the definition. What the term in bold you won't have. There is no word bank. Okay? I'm simply going to, what I do is I copy it into Socrative. I take out the word. I tell Socrative what the answer is, so you get graded by the computer. But, you know, blank means taking on human flesh. You type in incarnation. You have to spell it exactly correct. If you don't spell it exactly correct, you don't get any points for it. Hypostatic union, primordial sacrament. We're going to go over those three today. Sacramental grace. Here's a tricky one. It's a Greek term, and it's pronounced mystagogia. Now, you don't have to pronounce it that way. One, because you're never going to use that word in your life. Two, because that's not the way it's spelled. It's got two G's in there. The first G sounds like a hard G, and then the second G sounds like a J. That's a little confusing. So if you want to pronounce it as you study it, mystagogia, whatever helps you spell it correctly, because that's what's going to get you the points. Mystagogia is how it's actually pronounced. We'll study that at the end of this week. Theology, mystery, paschal mystery, sacramental economy, efficacious. That's another one. You got to work on the spelling. Two F's, two C's, and S at the end. Efficacious. Sacrament, blessing, Holy Trinity. That's 14 terms. You're only going to get 10 of them. Each one is worth 3 points. That's 30 points. Then you got to type out the morning offering for 20 more points. It's a 50-point quiz, half a test. So it's significant. It's a real great booster for most. Maybe not the first one. But, oh Jesus, through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, offering my prayers, works, joys, sufferings of this day, for all the intentions of your Sacred Heart, in union with the holy sacrifice of the Mass throughout the world, in reparation for my sins, for all the intentions of all my associates, and in particular for the intentions of the Holy Father. Now, I said for all my associates, if you want to put for all my family, all my relatives' family, there's a million different things you could put there. I'm fine with any of them. Some of you were taught a version of the morning offering in grade school that's a little bit different. I'm fine if you type down that version. I'm looking for the key points through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I unite all my stuff today to your Sacred Heart with the holy sacrifice of the Mass, in reparation for my sins and for the intentions of whoever. Okay, those are the key points I'm looking for. I don't take off little points here and there. I do give partial credit. So some of you do not have a strong religious upbringing at home, or you didn't learn these prayers maybe in your grade school. I understand that. Study it. It's Catholic school, so you have to do it. But even if you can only study the first half, you're going to get a 10 out of 20, and that's better than a 0 out of 20. So just do your best. I'll give partial credit. And that's a vocab quiz. It's going to be on Socrative. You're going to know your score on the vocab right away. The computer will give it to you. And then I will go through and grade your prayers. Okay? Questions on that? All right. So, should be good. All right. Covered your homework. Oh, I didn't talk about don't forget about the drive this week. Bring in your goods, your diapers and your cleaning supplies, etc. Bug spray, if you can donate it to the cause. Um, and that's about it, I guess, as far as announcements go. We should find out today how long we're going to be in this AB business. This could be the last week. Who knows? So stay posted on that. And, oh, yeah. I got to do one. Oh, wait. Now I'm going to Socrative. Now, what y'all did today on Socrative, this is as normal of a bell ringer as it gets. Okay? You will see this question, number one, about 1,000,000 times this year. Well, you'll see about once a class, minus quiz and test days. I'm always going to ask you, what did you learn? What was taught? Maybe you didn't learn it, but you can look back on your notes. What did I teach last class? And I don't do that for me because I forget. I do that for you because you need to remind yourself. You need to maybe even try to put in your own words. Yeah, we were taught that a sacrament was an outward sign of an inward grace. Boom. That's one thing. That statement is only 1/3 of the lesson, but I don't need the whole lesson. Just tell me one thing. It gets your brain moving, remembering, and then it will help you hopefully connect it to today's lesson too. Okay? So you're going to see that. Now, you can either give me what was taught last class, or you can ask me a sincere, legit religious question about really anything semi-related to the religion class, which is a lot of things. Do not ask me what I thought about the Saints game or the U.S. Open that finished yesterday. Do not ask Mr. Pale, how's your day going? How was your weekend? That's not related to the class. Okay, you'll lose 5 points if you do that. This is what happens. I give you that option to ask me a question, and it will pop up here anonymously because I want you to have the freedom to ask a question. A lot of you might be shy to raise your hand in class. You know, for various reasons. Well, if you just type it out, nobody's going to know who submitted that question, you know? So I give you that space to ask an anonymous question of any religious significance pretty much any given day. Some of you, hopefully none in this class, of course, might abuse that. And so that's where I get questions. How was your weekend, Mr. Pale? -5. Okay. A lot of times students will ask a question because they are legit too lazy to open their notebook at the beginning of class when they know they have to open it later anyways, and actually turn the page back and say, oh yeah, we were taught a sacrament is an outward sign of grace. They're too lazy to do that, believe it or not. And so they'll ask me a joke question. I can tell a legit question from a joke question, and if you ask me a joke question, I'm going to take 5 points off your class participation grade. All right? So don't abuse that option for a question. All right? Okay, we are changed by the sacraments by the grace we receive. Very good. One thing I learned last class was why humans require sacraments. It's because we're wrapped up in our bodies. We are body and soul. Very good. Question. Are we going to have any class periods where we can go and pray in the chapel? That is my hope and my prayer. Whether we're AB or not, that there are some days where we might be ahead of schedule, you know, maybe another class fell behind, and I'll say, you know what, today is a good day for me to teach y'all how to meditate. We'll go to the chapel and meditate. Totally. We will probably go to the chapel anywhere from 2 to 15 times this year, you know. It kind of depends on the class. Like last year, there were a couple of classes that probably went 10 times. There was one class maybe went 1 time. That one class wasn't a bad class. It was just they very talkative in a good way. And so we had a lot of class discussions, which meant less and less time for meditation in the chapel. Okay, hopefully that helps. So, because I think that's one thing that is lacking from your overall formation at Turlings. While we do put you on a retreat every year, we just never teach you how to pray. We tell you to pray every day, and we make you memorize prayers. But we all know you can rattle off memorized prayers all day long and still not have a relationship with Jesus. So it's not entirely fitting in a classroom scenario. Y'all should be involved in youth groups that help you learn how to pray or more effective ways to pray. I know that's just not the reality for most of y'all. You don't have that youth access to that youth group. It doesn't exist, or blah 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 blah. You can't make it. So I try to sneak it in when we have the time. So there's a long answer to a short question. When taking notes, will we ever get a guide, or will it just be our responsibility to take notes? Yeah, the notes are entirely your responsibility. I teach you write down what works for you. If you are unsure or unconfident in your notes, run them by me. I've already had one student this year say, Mr. Pay, I don't know if I took good notes. Kid had excellent notes for lesson 1. So you're free to ask me and show me your notes, and I'll tell you what you're missing. But yeah, I'm not going to give you any note-taking guides. You're certainly not going to get those in college. You need to learn to be aware, to take notes in a way that works for you. Okay, I'm trying to prepare you since most of you are on the track to go to college. Will we finish chapters on time if we have class discussions regularly? What is on time? I'm supposed to get 3 chapters in by the end of the quarter. And it's almost every day I have to decide, do I want to meet that deadline, or do I want to have open discussion where the students actually learn? My decision is almost always for the latter, open discussion. If I actually told the class last year's period 5, a small class, and I said, listen, y'all, the way the schedule works, I got to test you tomorrow. Like, we're finishing the chapter today. I'm going to test y'all tomorrow, or maybe it was 2 days from then. I don't know. And they were like, no, Ms. Penn, no, I'm not ready, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay. Well, listen, if y'all want to talk, if you want to discuss, if you can show me genuine interest and deep insight and thoughts and desires, let's have open discussion, and then I'll have to teach you the lesson next class. And they tried so hard. They did, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't ask a sincere question. Nothing was coming to their brain. So I got through the lesson. They took the test the next day. But I'm genuine in that. If I tell you there's a test tomorrow, I can always be pushed back. Quizzes won't be, but tests can be pushed back, yes, regularly due to class discussions. All right. Because what's more important than your testing is your learning. All right. I'm going to hopefully remember to go over this question during the course of the notes. Luke chapter 2. Any other thoughts, questions, discussion starters? All right. There's there's 2 last little notes I need y'all to take for lesson 1. And that is form and matter. Now, this is a big old diagram with a lot of words on it. In truth, you are responsible and should know all these words. But I'm not going to kill your hands and make you write them down. So I posted this on Classroom at the beginning of this hour. And this sacrament form matter diagram should be studied for your test. So you might want to write in your notebook, see form and matter diagram, see diagram posted on Classroom. But nobody wants to write down this. Ain't nobody got time for that. What I simply want to teach you to wrap up lesson 1, as I finish, the last thing you should have written down is that a sacrament is an outward sign of an inward grace. Okay, to better illustrate that, we have the church has identified a form and a matter for every sacrament. The form is the necessary words that accompany each sacrament. So every sacrament has certain words that need to be said for the sacrament, the spiritual reality to take place. The spiritual reality, the grace, enters and is present at the moment, largely, of those words being spoken. So at baptism, as soon as if the priest is pouring the water, says, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, when that happens in that moment, boom, you're baptized. It's not like a process. The form took place. The matter for baptism is water. The matter is the elements and gestures. Elements and gestures. Anybody watching this recording, I'm just writing down all these words that I'm describing for form and matter on the board. Matter is the elements and gestures of that sacrament. So every sacrament has certain things that need to accompany it. They're usually visible. Like I said, with baptism, you've got water and a triple immersion. Confirmation, it's oil. And then Eucharist, it's bread and wine. For confession, though, it's the contrition and the confession. That's the gesture. It's not something you have to bring except your own sorrow, basically, to the table. That's the matter of confession. Anointing of the sick, of course, is oil. Holy orders is the bishop laying his hands on. That's the matter, and usually is oil too. That's the matter. The form is the words of ordination that are listed here, and then matrimony. It's actually the fiance saying, "I take you to be my spouse." Da 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 da. That is the form. But the gesture is very invisible, actually. The matter is very invisible. It's actually just the inward consent, the inward surrendering of your life in service to the other. If that is present, that is the matter that God takes and transforms and infuses grace into it. Then you have holy matrimony, an outward sign of an inward grace. Bada bing, bada boom. So that's matter and form. Just know those terms. I might use them as the year goes on. Questions? Okay. So here's the deal. So that was lesson 1. Now we're officially done. I thought we were done, but now we're not. We're going to do lesson 2. Lesson 2 is strangely entitled Primordial Sacrament. Primordial Sacrament, lesson 2. I'm going to have to jog your memory. Hopefully you have fond memories of your past 2 years of religion here. But need to make sure y'all still remember what you were taught. Jesus Christ, God, the Son of God, takes on human flesh. What do we call that? Incarnation. So smart. Very good. Incarnation. Now, what we have here is the invisible God in all of his divinity. And he looks like any other person. Isn't this Jesus, the son of Jacob? He's just a carpenter. This guy is so ordinary. Why is he performing all these miracles and teaching with authority, people are saying? He was so normal. Jesus was so normal. He fit in, if anything, too much until he started performing miracles, and then things got crazy. He had these two realities, divine and human. They were always present and always active in his life. What do we call this intermingling, this union of his divinity and his humanity? Hypostatic union. Very good, Ian. Hypostatic union. Y'all are so smart. You can write down these terms if you don't remember them. They're on your vocab quiz or on your test. But I feel like y'all are just so smart, you don't even need to write them down. It's up to you. I just needed to jog your memory to realize how this class is hopefully building off your previous ones. We have the hypostatic union, which is the divinity and the humanity were commingled, were coexistent, equally present in the person of Jesus Christ. Now, what does this make Jesus? If Jesus has something very powerful, his divinity, that is invisible, he's got his humanity, which is as real as you and me. Of course, me without this space cadet look. It's as real as you and me, as tangible as, he can feel pain like you pain. You can pinch him, you can prick him and he bleeds. If he was that visible and real, but there's this deep invisible reality, what does that make Jesus? He is God. That doesn't make him God, though. If he is, let me hand the answer to you this way. If he's an outward sign in his humanity, but he's got this inward grace, what is Jesus, Emil? Okay, hold off on the fancy primordial term yet. Jesus is a sacrament. He's a sacrament. He's an outward sign of inward grace. He is the outward manifestation. We look at him now, and we see the invisible reality, which is our God who is love, and our God who came to make us his sons and daughters. Incarnation, hypostatic union tell us that Jesus is a now. The term the Catholic Church and her fancy theologians have ascribed to this is primordial, and I'm going to break down the word primordial to help you understand how this applies to Jesus. But Jesus is the primordial sacrament. We're going to break down primordial ACT style, okay? You know what? I'm going to use the Promethean board and the pen to break down this word. When I say the word prime, what do you think of? And I mean, what do you think of, like anything? Okay, I like all your answers. None of them are wrong. Will? Oh, pry. Okay, that is. I think that's PRY. I'm talking prime. PRIME. Anything else in this row? Prime numbers. What makes a prime number a prime number? It's only divisible by one in itself. It's a very unique, dare I say, individual number, and so it's divisible by one. Bad calibration. And what else? You said something, didn't you, Aaron? The best. Very good. So that's the first, and the best. Anybody else say anything else? Prime. Come on. Which of y'all are prime customers? Ava? What do you think? Prime is associated with Amazon. Amazon, of course, one day they said down like, oh, we want a whole membership thing, and we'll call it, I don't know why, but Amazon Prime. What? And the idea of the word Prime is that we're going to have this membership, and when people are in this membership, they are the prime, they are the first, and they are our best customers. So they get these discounts, and they give us, I don't know, 12, 14 bucks a month. Okay? So that's the idea. Prime, if an athlete is in his prime, he's playing the best he ever will, or she ever will play. What other people are in their prime? We usually refer that to athletes. But my wife and I chasing around two little boys all day. Some days we feel really silly. We just sometimes we're like, oh, we forgot what it was like to ever be a student and to learn things and just to read books. It's like we joke and I try to fight this reality, but it's like, oh, I think we're past our prime. Like, kids, they wear you down. Okay. you get the idea of what it means to prime. Ordeal is simply order. Primordial Sacrament tells us that Jesus is the first and the best in the order of all sacraments. Of all the sacraments out there, Jesus Christ is the first and the best in the order of the sacraments. That's what the word primordial sacrament implies. Okay. What is visible? Like we already said, the humanity of Jesus Christ, his face, his body, especially his death on the cross. The invisible reality is our awareness, our understanding, and our access to God's love for us. Okay, so now I explained to you, hopefully very clearly, this fancy theological term. Believe it or not, you're going to get a few fancy theological terms this chapter, but for the most part, I leave the fancy theological terms out. If I give you a weird term like primordial sacrament, which I promise you will never hear the rest of your life, nor will you ever be tempted to use in conversation, it's for a purpose, okay? I don't just give you everything on that vocab list has a purpose in your understanding of the sacraments. That being said, what might be the purpose of learning this term primordial sacrament? Jesus is the first, the greatest, the best in the order of all the sacraments. This is a hard question, but I want you to think about it. What value would there be if somebody could understand that Jesus is the primordial sacrament? What you got, Kate? Then Edward. Forefront. What do you think, Edward? Yes, Edward says nobody can probably hear that in the recording. It allows us to be closer to God through understanding Him more. You know what? I don't know if I've ever had a class really answer this question effectively, but you just did it. Now I'm going to elaborate on your answers with a diagram. For those visual learners, I'm going to give you a lot of diagrams in my teaching because I think I learned the best that way. You know, they say a picture is 1,000 words. So let me draw a diagram. Actually, I'm going to use the Promethean board again. Here's Jesus, on the cross. As we just said, he's the primordial sacrament. He's the first, the best in the order of the sacraments, which means that the person of Jesus comes first. From the person of Jesus Christ, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 formal sacraments in the Catholic Church. And if Jesus is the primordial one, that means that the sacraments come at best secondary. But it's important to recognize this weak diagram that I'm drawing because God is not complicated. God is simple. When God acts, everything acts in unison with him. He doesn't have different shops, different stores. When he speaks the truth, he speaks the truth. And the sacraments are directly related to the person and the revelation of Jesus Christ, which means that there's an order and a hierarchy to these sacraments, of which Jesus is at the top. And so every time you receive one of the 7 sacraments, you are in a direct encounter with the person of Jesus Christ. So let me draw some people down here as awkwardly as I can. So it's us who are receiving the graces from these sacraments. And every time we do, if we understand this hierarchy, We are encountering Jesus Christ. We are understanding him more. We have a direct access to Jesus Christ because these sacraments are flowing from him. Okay, that's really the first part of the answer to the question on the board. Let you write that down as best as you can. Now, if every time you go to a sacrament, if you went to Mass yesterday, if you expect to go next Sunday, and you say, I'm going to receive the sacrament of the Eucharist, of Holy Communion, that means that you are being put in a direct relationship with direct access to the person of Jesus Christ. That opens wide the doors of the sacrament for you as far as grace goes. I think one of the biggest struggles with Catholicism in our day and age, and there's a lot of them, is that we go to the sacraments and we treat them like a checklist. Like, oh yeah, I got baptized as a kid. Yeah, I'm in the family, and then I got my first Holy Communion in second grade. I went to confession right before that, so I did the confession thing. I did that once. I did it, so that counts for something, right? And I got the communion, and then high school I got my confirmation, and when I'm ready to get married, I'll go back there, and then I hope I get anointed the sick when I die. Holy orders isn't for me. I really do believe a lot of Catholics see the sacraments as like this checklist that they have to go through to be a good Catholic, right? To be proud of themselves. It's like you're in the Boy Scouts and you need to get all your patches. Good job, by the way, being an Eagle Scout. I saw that in the paper. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. But we treat it like that. I'm going to Sunday Mass because I have to, because this is what I'm supposed to do, because I'm a Catholic, I'm in the family. And even then, only 1/3 of Catholics go to Mass on Sunday. And a lot of them are just doing it because they have to, because they're supposed to go through the ropes so they don't go to hell. Well, what does that tell you with how many Catholics who are baptized that actually see the love of God behind the sacrament? It's probably in the neighborhood of 10 to 20%, y'all. 10 to 20% of Catholics maybe get the idea. That's in America. Those are the stats for America. 1/3 of Catholics in America go to Mass on Sunday. And a lot of us don't ever really appreciate or lean into the Mass when we're there. Maybe 10 to 20% of American Catholics actually look to encounter Jesus Christ, the primordial sacrament, with that sacrament. When we go to confession, do we understand that we are pouring out our hearts to Jesus Christ and getting all cleaned up and washed up there? These have got to be the deepest, intimate moments you have with Jesus, if you understand them and if you're disposed to them. You can have a mystical vision of Jesus. He could appear to you while you're eating breakfast every morning and tell you what he wants you to do. But there is nothing more intimate than receiving his body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Mass. And that's what we have to understand, that all these sacraments put us in direct relationship to Jesus Christ. That's the very point of this class, to foster your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I'm here to tell you today that when you're sitting through a quote-unquote boring Mass, it's not for nothing. But if you see it as you're on a lunch date with your best friend, or if it's another day with your boyfriend, girlfriend, if you treat it like I'm fostering a relationship, I'm hearing Jesus speak through his words of the Mass, and I'm offering my heart back. If that's happening, you're going to be somebody special in life if you can pull that off, if you can live your life like that. We have to lean into it. Like every relationship, you have to bring something to the table. Jesus brings the majority of it. He just needs you to show up with open ears and open heart. That's the importance of the sacraments, and that's how they relate to Jesus, the primordial sacrament. Excuse me, I didn't realize that you had the entire lesson in front of you, which is fine. I just got to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Any questions? All right. I think that ends the lesson. I might have another follow-up note next class view. But I will stop the recording here.